Hello, everybody. I know a random extra Sunday fun day, and it's over something that's actually fairly recent. Oh my god, what's this world coming to? Yeah, I've been hearing about this for the past couple days because it just released, of course. And what movie am I talking about? It is, of course, Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution, or Evolutions.
ペガベガ
It's fucking who cares? I wanted to give my opinions on this for numerous reasons. First off, and it's the biggest reason in out of all of it, is I am actually a big Pokemon fan. I've rather enjoyed quite a few of the games. I will fully admit that the games tend to always veer a little bit more towards the kids, let's say. But I understand that. But at the same time, I am part of the vocal minority that would say it's like, I would like something that's a little bit more, hey Pokemon, could you give us something that is for some of the older audience? Maybe something a little bit more pizzazzy. We don't need a Dark Souls game. No, no. But, give us something that's maybe more tactical or anything like that. Like, honestly, if Pokemon released like a tactical RPG and just gave it a smallish kind of budget and included some select but very popular amongst the older crowd Pokemon, I think it'd be a hell of a lot of fun. That's neither here nor there. And also, I must show the bit of nostalgia or nostalgic geek that I am about certain things. When it comes to Pokemon, the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, the original one. I actually like the movie. I enjoy it for its flaws and also despite some of them. A lot of people obviously have good reasons to have problems with Mewtwo Strikes Back, the original. Just saying it there. And to preface this little next few sentences. It is a movie that has confusing morals at times. The entire plot is completely subverted by the fact that Mewtwo just wipes everybody's memory and just warps them back to, the dock at the end of the movie. And on top of everything, there is some little errors here or there. Like, for instance, Team Rocket's whole shtick is completely stupid. And even there is a guy who calls his Pidgeot an obvious Pidgeot. He calls it a Pidgeotto. But that's kind of neither here nor there for me. Because despite all of that, because one, I will say the movie had a minuscule little budget. I don't know if that is simply the US budget or if it was a complete animation budget. It was like about $5 million. That's nothing. I mean, comparing that to any animated film of its time, that is a micro budget. But it was able to still make me care enough about the characters, and also was actually pretty damn well animated. Like, there is some incredible cinematography throughout it. There's also some really good settings for everything, and also is hands down Mewtwo's voice, the actor who portrays him, is fucking phenomenal. It's one of the best things ever. And sure, Ash is still just as stupid as always. And like I said, its morals really hamper a lot of the film, because not like this. Pokemon shouldn't fight like this. But I'm going to get a little bit into that here in a bit when I start to talk about, finally, Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolutions. Now, I am going to preface all of my review with one thing. Yes, I am a sucker for nostalgia. That being said, you cannot just give me a film that is pretty much the exact same thing and expect me to absolutely love it. Case in point, I hated the Lion King remake. I absolutely loathed it because it was very much like, oh, we're just going to redo the same thing, but we're going to take out all its charm. Similar thing seems to exist throughout the entirety of Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution. The movie begins by showing a little bit more about them actually discovering the fossil of Mew, or a hair of Mew, to create, the perfect being, or whatever And I was thinking, oh, okay, so they're going to add in some of the backstory, such as the fact that Mew was talking with the professor's daughter and everything, and, you know, he was dealing with her clone pretty much failing and dying. And also him coming to befriend the other three original clones. It's Charmander, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle. You know, the ones that he ends up using at the end, or near the end of the movie. That become Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur, of course. That would have been nice just to have a little bit of more continuity from the original Japanese, and also would have helped to explain certain issues from the original that were cropped up because of that. I admit that was an issue. It's like, okay, Mewtwo doesn't really have a motivation in the original one for a bit. In fact, his whole thing is, who am I? Why am I here? Is his entire motivation. And on top of everything, I was like, okay, well, you know, that kind of like him coming to grips with what is life, what is death. That is a really, really strong message. And I was like, oh, they're going to do that, right? Nope. They completely ignore that. They don't even bring up any of the stuff with the dying daughter or granddaughter of the scientists who originally created Mewtwo. And in fact, the sole reason they created Mewtwo is to create Mewtwo. Why? Why did we make this weird, stupid change? Like, at least in the original, there was an explanation that Giovanni, or kind of was inferred, that Giovanni was helping to fund them and wanted to create them to create a powerful Pokemon. Alright, cool. That is A-okay with me. It is stupid, and it kind of doesn't make the most sense in the world, especially when he decides to make it a psychic type, and Sabrina already showed psychic types can kind of, you know, fuck with your head a lot. But it's another thing to, you know, just like, oh, we just made you to make you. And the whole time, Mewtwo's like, hey, dudes, why the fuck did you make me? We made you to make you. Ha ha ha. And there's constantly this thing of them trying to say, well, humans make because we can make, and Pokemon make because they can make. It's this weird message that just doesn't make any sense if you think about it for any time. It's like, wait, what? And Mewtwo just randomly decides to nuke the place. He just decides to go bonkers just because, like, well, fuck you, you're not answering my question. Like, it came from, in the original, where it seemed like he was genuinely at odds with the fact that they created him, and they simply, you know, seemed more worried about, you know, how to use him to further their own ends. Sure, the whole stuff with Giovanni shortly after that kind of undoes some of that. And, you know, and him just genuinely raging at them. It's still a childish rage, but it's still one that at least, you know, as a child, you can understand that rage, that the parents aren't listening to me. Why are they not listening to me? You know, they don't want to listen any bit to what I'm saying. And he just nukes the fucking buildings. Like, okay, he's not just a child who is raging, who kind of has a bit of a point. He's now just a child throwing a tantrum. Thanks, you decided to erode that bit of foreshadowing or anything that you could have had, because fine, Mewtwo's 2. And on top of everything, I do have to immediately talk about the fact that this movie is CGI. It is all just computer animated. There's no points of actual animation. For better and worse. Now, for the most part, it is okay with characters like Mewtwo, Mew even, and a number of other Pokemon it's fine with. But whenever you have, like, the obviously, like, fuzzier Pokemon, like a Pikachu or whatnot, they look very plastic, so they don't look very real. Sure, the idea is not to make this super realistic, like with Detective Pikachu, but it is weird that this movie feels very bereft of a budget because of the fact that the Pokemon look so bad. Like, they look like shit. It looks like they spent $2 and hired out some schlub in his basement to crank out Pokemon models. they did a, Pokemon Shield, and like, we could, or Sword and Shield, sorry. They're like, we could bother with it and spend some money, but fuck it, who cares? Nobody's gonna care. These kids are just gonna watch anything we put out. And then, on top of everything, all the human models are really funky. Like, none of them look like they work well. They just constantly feel very rigid, very immobile. They look like toys. A lot of times their skin is super plasticky looking. It's really jarring, and it makes for any time that there is human interaction and not Pokemon on the screen. It makes for such a fake looking movie. It's hard to describe it any other way other than that. I don't know why they thought this was the way to go. To compare just CGI and animation to each other, let's take, for instance, because this is supposed to be a nostalgia pandering film. Let's take, for instance, a very well known one that came out just like a year, 2 years ago, Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Side Dimensions. Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Side Dimensions still had CGI models, but whenever it used that, it was really only for the hologram monsters and also like some of the effects they would do to some of the characters to make them disappear whenever the villain was using his like powerful super doopy thing. I like Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Side Dimensions. The plot's still silly. But other than that, there was actually some fantastic looking actual anime done. There were some wonderful drawings done, and the characters were spot on. There was some fucking beautiful looking models they decided to create for all these different characters. Hell, even the new villain looked really good, despite the fact he was just pretty much a child. And then whenever they merged and made him like Zork and I think his name was Diva or something like that. Whenever it kind of got mixed together and became this like otherworldly demon thing, that was all animated and it looked fantastic. It looked really good. Hell, the CGI that they used looked really good. It's like it felt like they spent a lot of money to make a very good looking film. Like, I watched through it a number of times. I'm like, this is damn good. At least in terms of how it looks. The story's always like Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a little so-so at times. Some of it's really good, some of it's really stupid. The best part's always with Kaiba. But it's like, okay, this movie, obviously there was some love put into it. And not only that, but it was a continuation of technically the manga arc, but still there was a continuation from what we had originally seen. It's like, okay, so sure, Pokemon can't exactly do all that because you'd have to follow up with the newest stuff. And this is supposed to be a love letter to Mewtwo Strikes Back. But instead of us getting, higher end models, like, oh, well, we're going to make this all CGI. Or if they decide, oh, we're going to make all the Pokemon CGI, make it look like Detective Pikachu, which I will still admit, they looked really, really good. Instead, this just all looks like toys walking around. It might as well be claymation. And not the good claymation, like the herky-jerky one. And another thing I have to admit, and I'll also talk about with the CGI and also the dubbing, because I did watch this, of course, dubbed. The fucking dubbing just not match real well. It's like who Netflix decided to get to actually, put this together and actually dub all of it. Couldn't be bothered to try and get some of the lip syncing to really go together. So there's like times when like Misty is talking and it's just not moving with her lips at all. And I watched this same part a few different times. I'm like, okay, well, let me try and watch it on my TV instead of on my phone. Okay, well, let me watch it on my laptop, see if that's a little bit better, and just like hook it straight into the Ethernet. See if I'm having like a bit of a delay or something. But no, it's just the flaps are just completely off. So constantly when humans are talking, it's off. It feels exactly like you would think a cheap, rushed production would be. It's poorly done, it's poorly put together, and it looks like garbage. And that's a big issue that constantly just pervades throughout the entire movie. it feels like this was done in a weekend and they had no budget to do anything. Ugh. But yeah, so I do need to kind of talk about the plot, because one of my central, like, driving issues with this movie is the plot. Now, mind you, beyond obviously some of the changes they did there with Mewtwo's sort of reasoning for why he is he, there is then eventually, you know, of course Giovanni comes in, they still keep that, and he gives Mewtwo armor that's supposed to help dull his powers. And okay, at least you kind of explain that plot point a bit. You know, like, why does he have this armor on? Oh, well, it's for this reason. But, again, it's one of those that, at least the original was stupid, the reason why Mewtwo decided to partner with Giovanni, because he tried to say, we'll be partners, you know. They saw you as, you know, a thing they could use, because that's kind of one of Mewtwo's issues, because they were kind of already talking about, like, oh, we'll try this experiment with the next one, you know, pretty much Mewtwo was being seen as just as, oh, well, we accomplished something, but we're going to just do something else, because you're just this one thing. And it's like one of those, like, okay, so I get kind of Mewtwo's reason to be pissed off, especially if you add in the granddaughter stuff. That would make it a lot better. And here, it's not so much the issue of, like, Giovanni's like, oh, we'll be partners. He's just like, oh, just work for me. Or just be my Pokemon. It's like, why? Why would he agree to this? He just threw a fit because nobody was really talking with him, and he's like, oh, well, I'm a Pokemon, so I must be your Pokemon then. It's bizarre change, and it actually kind of destroys Mewtwo character even more, and it's like, okay, so you've made him from being a petulant brat, and now you have made him an utter moron. The fuck are you doing here? Why are you making these weird changes? I don't know if they were just directly translating what happened in Japanese over to English, and they decided to say, fuck it, why not? But if that was what's happening, it's like, it makes for just a damn impossible to sit through early chunks, just because it's like, okay, these changes y'all made don't make sense. And I can't have this prevailing feeling that's like, okay, this is not making a lot of sense. Because that's all I feel throughout. I'm like, alright, well, this doesn't make sense. That didn't make sense. Why is this happening? But yeah, so we learn that, yeah, the things are dulling Mewtwo's power, and then eventually Mewtwo, he keeps saying the why am I here thing. That was the thing that constantly was a thing that he said in the original. But here, he just kind of says it once or twice, and it's never like the constant, like, what am I here for? What is my purpose? You know, and then he's like, oh, Giovanni's evil, and the original always was dopey. I will fully admit that. Even me, I was like, okay, that's kind of dumb. But here, it's like he knew transparently Giovanni was trying to use him as a Pokemon for reasons, and it's like, so why are you surprised? I mean, at least, you know, I guess if you do go by the fact the armor was kind of dulling his psychic powers, maybe it was making it to where he couldn't read Giovanni's mind. That adds more validity to the first one, the reason why Giovanni was able to easily coax him. Being leader of a shady organization like Team Rocket, and obviously having thousands, if not tens of thousands of diehard followers and lackeys, beyond obviously just being rich, but also having to have a little bit of charisma to be able to talk people into this. Okay, that I can believe if he was dulling Mewtwo's ability to be able to read his mind, so he couldn't see Giovanni's true purposes. Or even if Giovanni was so deluded in his own grandeur that he could make Mewtwo see what he really wants Mewtwo to see. Who knows? There's a lot of things that could be done here. But Giovanni's very forward. It's like, nah, you're just going to be my Pokemon, man. Then Mewtwo's like, I'm not going to be anybody's Pokemon. I'm powerful. And in fact, that's a kind of a big thing, Constance. Like, he's like, I'm so powerful. I shouldn't be a person's Pokemon. Ow, I hit my can. And I'm like, Why? Why did we make this change? It wasn't about the fact of Mewtwo's like, oh, I'm powerful, so that means I shouldn't belong to anybody. His point was always, why am I in this life? What is my purpose in life? You're giving this other, this ultra powerful being pretty much an issue of trying to figure out what is their reason for living. You're pretty much making a child have the powers of a god nearly, and they have to determine what is their purpose in life. That is actually a fantastic idea. Dear God, did they decide to butcher and remove it completely from this movie for some reason. So the movie, again, it just goes beat for beat throughout the rest of the next bit of the movie. Like, you see Ash fight the pirate dude who has a Dawn fan, which for some reason has flamethrower. I know Dawn fans can learn flamethrower. It's news to me. There's, of course, Team Rocket's shtick thing that's stupid as hell. They get the message to go, hey, here, go to meet Totally Not Nurse Joy, and then you also get the other big annoyance throughout the entire movie, which is Brock. Brock's big shtick throughout this entire movie is anytime there is a quote-unquote pretty girl, he has to talk like this and do this. And he does that 3 times, and other than that, he has one other, technical line read. And it's like, why is he even doing that with everything? I know that's a big Brock thing that, he, thinks all the women's, except for Misty, are pretty. But it's like, it gets really, really, really fucking old. And it takes so much out of the film quickly. And it's just like, okay, I get it. You think women are pretty. Thanks. I got it. It's not funny. Stop beating me in the head with it. Ugh. The original didn't even do it that much. At best, whenever he saw the hologram, it's like, oh, she's really pretty, That's all he stated. And that was the gist of his running gag that they have throughout the entire anime beforehand. But other than that, he was actually, at least a person who had some semblance of able to keep it together. Not just oh, girls, let me... It's like, okay, what the fuck did y'all do with Brock? He never was the brightest bulb in the chandelier, but at least he wasn't an absolute just horn dog. Not as bad as... It's like, God, you make Johnny Bravo look subtle. But yeah, it goes beat for beat through that. You get to see them going to the other ocean, and again, they still have the issue that there is a 4th trainer that leaves, and besides Ash and company, and it's like, well, where did they go? Did they die? And they kind of you're the only trainers that tried. It's like, so is everybody else just pussies? Is that what y'all are trying to say? And not only that, but there's points to where when they throw their Pokemon, instead of them kind of riding them just normally, for some reason when Gyarados is thrown out and the guy's riding him, he rides him underwater for a long time and just kind of sitting there just riding his back, just doesn't look like he's holding his breath, nothing. And again, it does not help the shitty CGI. And also the girl who summons the dugong, the same thing happens. She goes underwater and it's just underwater for an hour and just eventually finally crests. And again, the shitty CGI, since you can't see water or anything on them and their clothes don't get darker or anything, it just looks like she just hopped in and is impervious to water. Oh, God damn it, this movie. So yeah, they get to the island. They fix the guy calling his Pidgeotto Pidgeotto. Thanks. Nice to know we spent these millions of dollars to fix a single line and instead create more plot holes and more problems throughout this movie. And you have to... They also decided to add in the fact that all the trainers kind of introduced their Pokemon in a way. And it's really weird and awkward. Strange to describe it that way. Like the lady who's there, Brock has to swoon. And it's that the whole time. And I'm like, stop it. It's not funny. This wouldn't be funny to a 3-year-old. It's not funny to somebody who's at least, of age to at least be able to discern the difference between a good fart joke and a bad one. And he has to, go through each of her Pokemon. Then each trainer kind of goes through their Pokemon. And then Brock technically has 2 lines or 2 group of lines where he doesn't swoon. Sorry if I'm overdoing it. That's just exactly what they decided to go. They decided to go, hey, you've done Brock for years. Like, yeah, what can I do for you? Like, alright, we're going to get you to do Brock. And, alright, so you're just going to do a stupid Elvis Presley impersonation the whole time. Why would I do that? That's not what Brock does. In fact, it doesn't even fit with the rest of the movie. Because we're retarded and we don't know anything better. God, man, just get on board. Take your paycheck and fuck off. I guess that's how that conversation went. But yeah, and then the other guy who was the Gyarados, the other line read that Brock has, isn't that the atrocious Pokemon? It's the weirdest line read I've ever heard, and I'm like, thanks for reading off the Pokedex. And then, eventually, of course, Mewtwo shows up, and he's just kind of pouting the entire time. But, again, this is where the CGI is failing, because Mewtwo's face is just the entire time. Now, I get it that, Mewtwo was very stoic, for lack of a better way to put it, in the original, but his eyes were the one thing that gave away a lot of the emotion. Whenever he was more, wondering about something, his eyes would narrow more, or maybe they would open up and reveal more of his thought process. Or whenever he's angry, it would just, he would narrow more and just, it would look like a pissed off look. And also his eyes would light up and everything. Here, the only way we know that Mewtwo's feeling anything is that his words are saying it. It's like, I am angry. Roar. Thanks. But yeah, we have to have the showing of the 3 clones, and the 3 clones of Blastoise, Venusaur, and Charizard, of course. And here's where the movie has a problem because of that earlier scene not being included, or not making that part of it. So, when Pokemon the first movie came out, the second generation was on the horizon, but it was not released yet. Or maybe, no, it wasn't released yet. I'm right, that wasn't released. So, knowing this, they didn't have any idea that there were anything other than just this Mew and Mewtwo. That's the, legendaries, and also Articuno and all that. They didn't know that there was going to be another 100 Pokemon. So the fact of him calling, I started out with the same 3 Pokemon every trainer does. That, kind of eventually became, no, not really. Because there's other regions, and they have different starters. It would have been one thing if he said, I started out with 3 similar Pokemon, or the starters like y'all, with Charmander, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle, and him saying something like that. I started with them, and we were able to, become something, or whatever you want to do. Add in that stuff from the beginning where he met their clones, and he pretty much had to rebuild them, rebuild friends, rebuild family. It's a strong, strong message. And it's kind of one of Mewtwo's running narratives. Loneliness. That is the entire juxtaposition of his existence. That's the entire issue that he has. He is lonely. He is very, very alone. So, include that. Instead, they go with, in this movie, still, I began with the same 3 starters. I'm like, that doesn't make sense now that we know that there are multiple different starters. It's a weird line that does not fit. And again, it just takes a little bit of rewriting certain things. Just add in a little bit more. It's like I may have started with the same starters as y'all, because these are people who have Charizard, or have had Charmander, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle. Sorry, I was kind of Squirtle there. But if you include the, hey, I decided to make them better, I decided to breathe more life into him, and he pretty much tried to remake his friends, but they didn't quite have that same, spark to them as he remembered, or he made them more docile, more, just less companions, but more subservient to him. In short, didn't really create a family, he simply created subjects. That is a story there. That is, okay, that's a narrative. That's something to hang on to, especially considering that one of the big issues that he takes with Ash is the fact that Pikachu and him are friends and that they choose each other. Which, okay, that's a narrative that could be there if you had the fact of Mewtwo's loneliness being included. They don't. He's just trying to say, clones are more powerful. I'm all powerful. I don't need Pokemons that are under masters. Why? Why is this included? So everything goes through just like it had in the original one. The clones beat the originals in a flashy show of powers and everything. And eventually, of course, he captures all the Pokemon, including Pikachu, and captures them in Pokeballs. Though they're a lot stupider to try and get it. You'd think they would have started, the other trainers would have started beforehand, but no, fuck it. And then, of course, the Pokemon get all stolen away, then clones get made of them, blah, blah, blah. Then Mewtwo kind of pontificates, of course, about this giant storm that's going to kill everything. Yada, yada, yada. Just get to the final fight sequence. And we get to probably one of the most controversial moments throughout the original movie and also this movie. Now, to talk about the original movie, and I am going to actually create a headcanon. And I will fully admit, it is within my own psyche. Puns not fully intended. So, in the original script, or at least what they originally said and everything, of course you get the Pokemon weren't meant to fight, not like this. Now, a lot of people kind of point out, it's like, okay, well, that's stupid. Y'all, partake of this Pokemon dogfighting ring and everything. Follow me throughout here and listen to Mewtwo's words beforehand. I will use my psychic powers to block their special abilities. Now, most people say, okay, well, that just means they can't shoot laser beams or whatnot. I think of it as a little bit more than that. Now, realize that this is technically having to take into account what Pokemon the company's given us and all this other stuff. But also remember that there's a thing called S-Defense. We as kids do not remember it. Special defense. Now think if he is removing that. Let's say that special defense isn't just something that determines how much, they can withstand certain elemental things, how much, something that's strong against them, how much they are able to still be able to defend against it and all this and that. But think of maybe, not only is he doling their ability to use their powers, he's also doling their special defense. He's taking away their ability to be able to properly just have this, like for a better way to say it, an aura around them that prevents major damage. Like, let's say, for instance, in this case, this particular, blocking of this, it doesn't just make the Pokemon susceptible to harm. They're susceptible to actual death. Like true physical damage. Like a bite is no longer just a bite. A bite is teeth sinking into flesh. It is piercing skin. It is something truly hurting them. But with special defense, a bite is simply something that is hitting a aura in a way, and eventually cracking that aura makes a Pokemon faint. It's a stupid headcanon to explain a stupider thing, but I always thought of it as that it's less that they have their power shut off, but more in the fact that they have had their defenses that prevent them from being able to truly feel as much harm as possible to being having it completely shut off to where they are feeling every inch of that pain. They are feeling all of that, anger, that, resentment that they may have for each other. Scyther's blades aren't hitting an aura area or hitting something, like, oh, I'm just hitting, the area around Pikachu and causing hurt or hitting an Electabuzz or something like that. But instead, you're hitting flesh. You are hurting an animal. You are truly creating a dogfight. So then the line, Pokemon aren't made to fight. Not like this. That's where I believe helps to slightly solidify my headcanon. It makes that theory feel like it has a little bit more weight. Because Nurse Joy would be one who can tell. It's like, okay, these Pokemon have had their, ability to be able to truly stop this physical harm from being as dangerous as possible completely nullified. To the where this attack, they are feeling every brunt of it. That would be something that, you could say, okay, yeah, I can understand that, fighting is bad. Of course, the whole idea behind Pokemon kind ignores all that, but, we're not going to get into that. But it at least explains away the reason why I don't have as much issues with the scene. Especially whenever Ash sees that Pikachu is not fighting. Because he sort of sees that and he kind of just wants them to start fighting in this one just out of nowhere. It really does not make sense. And to talk about, of course, the evolution. And, okay, well, maybe this headcanon can fit within the original movie. It doesn't fit here. Because, one, the whole special defense is not brought up. And instead, it's simply just stated, it's like, oh, well, I'm just going to block the Pokemon being able to use their special moves. If you would have said special abilities, that would have still allowed you that out that I'm granting the first movie. And instead, we still have the Pokemon aren't meant to fight, not like this. It's not said like that. It's the exact same message, though. While Pokemon are meant to just fight, he should realize that they... And in fact, that's how they word. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you really going there with me, Pokemon? Are you trying to tell me that your franchises you have built completely on fighting and training Pokemon, they shouldn't be fighting? Or do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I am an idiot? Oh my god. Oh. Magic jump cut. Sorry. Yeah. Jesus. This movie at times. So, after we get the Pokemon shouldn't be fighting, who cares if they're clones? Because that's the message it decides to get across. I have no idea why they decided to go with this message. Because, like, when Meowth decides to come across his clone, they change up the dialogue completely. Instead of Meowth's, clone trying to kind of pretty much tell him, it's like, yeah, we are just the same. It's like, your claws look like they are white. My claws will hoit too, so let's not hoit. What? What? It's like, what? Why? Why is this your argument you're going with? Your argument is completely run contradictory to the entire premise of your entire show. I know certain animes have tried the whole, like, let's have an anti-war message in a war show. Or a show that is based around, fighting a lot. Such as Mobile Suit Gundam. I fully admit that, but at least Mobile Suit Gundam, whenever it has a character who wishes to be more about peace than they are about actual fighting, they tend to try and follow it up and actually, stick the landing. That character really doesn't fight, or doesn't really even like to fight, and the time they fight is really on occasions whenever it pretty much has to, and even then they try not to kill. Here you have this message of, we're pretty mean, fishy. So what, do we just do Pokemon Snap everywhere? That's fine, just why do you have an entire anime then that's completely built on the idea of Pokemon fighting each other? But yeah, so the movie follows beat for beat, like I said, the original, and the fact that Ash gets himself killed throughout stupid circumstances. They kept fighting! And just gets zapped and dies, although he becomes a statue. And here again is another issue that they could have fixed from the original. Now, mind you, the scene with all the Pokemon crying to me, I will admit from the original, it got to me. Because Pikachu's crying just fucking made me blubber. But the idea that the Pokemon's tears just magically heal Pikachu, despite the fact, one, Mewtwo's still blocking all their special abilities, so how the fuck is that happening? And two, how does tears negate the fact of, what's the word I'm looking for? Pretty much negate getting hit by two giant Psybeams. Hava? How do they not make you stone anymore? But they could have changed that scene by just, letting Mewtwo see the sorrow of things. Letting him see it's like that, yes, just fighting to try and prove one's better, that doesn't prove anything, That is, one, it still kind of contradicts a bit of Pokemon's message, but it will still ring true for Mewtwo's character. It still would say, okay, well here, this is, he shouldn't. And let's say he decides he revives Ash. It would be stupid, but at least if he just did it, the great powerful super Pokemon, or if you had Mew do it, or they combine their powers to bring back life into him because they see the pure destruction that they have wrought, maybe show some of these Pokemon cut, and maybe a little bleeding or anything. Like in the original, at least you saw them, they were beat to hell. If they saw that and decided they both band together to heal Ash and bring him back to life, and then they say it's like, we're not going to worry about, trying to prove who, it's not about proving who's better, it's, or by, trying to fight each other, it's proving who's, proving that, we don't need to fight to make a family or anything like that. Anything stupid. Just the idea that tears cure is so dumb. It's laughably stupid. It's naive to a point that even children would call you out on being idiotic. And that's the problem. They don't change it. They decide to keep it exactly as is, and then still he wipes their memory and everything. So, just like with the original, where the ending felt like a hell of a cop-out, they cop out of the ending here. And that's Pokemon Evolutions. Or Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolutions. And the big prevailing thing I had throughout the entire movie, why does this exist? Who wanted this? Now, with Dark-Sided Dimensions, to compare to, one showed a love of the original franchise and wanting to revisit it and kind of give some closure for some of the characters. Sure, the last duel with Yugi versus Atem, that was a lot of closure in and of itself, but there wasn't a whole lot of closure really for Kaiba. Pretty much for the most part, it kind of exists as closure for Kaiba. It still had some maliciously cool battles. I still get chills with Atem coming back for a little bit. And also, I still love the fact that Joey, whenever he's getting dissipated, he doesn't come back thanks to an actual change that 4 kids fucking made for the better, where, they got rid of the fact that, hey, he was getting erased, and originally in Japanese, like, oh, it's Atem, the Pharaoh brought him back. It's like, no, it was actually the memories and the love of his friends that brought him back. It's like, sure, it seems cheesy, but it's something that the bad guy can't take from him, so he can't be taken away. It's like, okay, that's actually really, really heartfelt. That's very well done there. It's like, good on you there. Here, since it's such a beat-for-beat remake, there's very little changes beyond the obviously very poorly done CGI animation, you know, you have to then look at the script. And you realize the script is so little changes, and what changes were made didn't amount to enough that would add something to the film. And in fact, in certain spots, really detracted from the entire movie. I'm not saying this movie has to be completely geared towards adults, but here's also another thing. It's not following the most recent Pokemon series. So you're aiming this towards the people who saw this as kids in 1999. That's over 20 years ago. They are able to fucking vote at this point. You don't have to still make this as child-friendly as possible. Add some darkness to it. Add some of the stuff that we as Pokemon fans would expect from this. We, as Pokemon fans, if we're still hardcore Pokemon fans, we know about the fact that there was that clone of the little girl, the granddaughter of the scientist. It would have gave him some actual purpose, the entire thing, instead of just being something that Mewtwo kills off. And on top of everything, adding some actual fucking character to Mewtwo. And that's one of the most damning things about this movie. It takes away a lot of Mewtwo's character. In the first movie, sure, he was petulant and sometimes kind of stupid for a psychic Pokemon, but you still would understand his plight. He's angry. He's a child, and he's given no direction, and those that he has been around have seemingly only wanted to abuse him or use him for their own gain. Of course he's going to be an unhappy Pokemon. Of course he's going to mistrust humans. Why wouldn't he? You know, what he has seen and the evils he has seen that humans have wrought on the world. And not only that, but imagining the fact that he's psychic. Let's say he's been building up this idea for at least maybe spend less time with the Giovanni stuff. Actually kind of makes a problem for it. But at least give him a year, maybe even longer, where he's had to think about who or what he even is. You know, his purpose or anything is always a big deal. But, you know, him trying to come to grips with the fact he doesn't have a family. He has no mother or father like he wants to bring up in the beginning of this first movie, and then it just kind of quickly gets pushed under the rug. He's like, oh, don't worry about that. I'm not going to talk about that. And, you know, give us, you know, a better Pokemon movie. Again, this is not geared for kids, because a kid's not going to give a shit about this. Oh, you know, there's Donphan in it? Whoopie fucking do. The fact that this is also being released so many years afterwards, like, kids aren't going to give a shit. They're going to go watch the original. Because it's still animated and it's not going to stick out too starkly from the current show. Sure, the current show looks like absolute garbage at times. I think their budget is now $1.50 per episode. But at least it's still animated. And on top of everything, it's got a technically shorter runtime. And honestly, it feels better paced. This movie, it still feels like there is entire chunks where we have to sit around and watch some of Team Rocket's shtick, and on top of it, the jokes that are there are so few and far in between, and the fact that there isn't that kind of timely, you know, super timeless 90s, you know, thing, like even the my brother fighting thing that was going on throughout the thing. I'm like, okay, it's cheesy, but damn it, it at least feels, you know, like it's still part of the Pokemon universe that we know and love. Hell, this whole thing screams of like, we just didn't care. And it's like, yeah, Netflix cared so much about Pokemon that they spent $3 to pull this movie over and get voice actors to voice it. It reeks of laziness, and that's the worst thing I can say about the Pokemon franchise, especially as of late. Like, with Detective Pikachu, I'm like, okay, it's not the best movie in the world. It has a lot of flaws. But I would say it's like, okay, well, at least maybe they're going to eventually try and do more with that world. I would love to see more of that world. I would love to see more characters within that world. But, dear God, does this make me not want to see anything else that's related to Pokemon at times? With Pokemon Sword and Shield, the fact that it's ungodly built for kids, and I get it, kids are the core ones who are going to buy it, but there's a point where, give us a difficulty level, give us some way we can change our difficulties, anything. You know, it feels, and only that, but with the fact that they're trying to gear so much more towards, oh, just get the new generation, don't worry about the old. It's like, well, fuck you too, Pokemon Company. And Nintendo, for that matter, and Game Freak. Just because of this constant gearing towards fuck the old, this movie really, really makes a lot of not sense. It's like, so, because you're already telling us you don't give a shit about the people who have given you money and money and money for years on end, because you don't care about them, and because you've obviously been telling them, your favorites, fuck them, who cares? You made this movie that also shows you don't care. And that's just the thing. It's like, this is telling me that just Pokemon Company does not care anymore. Like, it is simply just to get the kiddies. And that's sad, because Pokemon should be a franchise for all. Everybody should be able to watch it, should be able to enjoy it, should be able to still love it to this day. But even me, like, one of the issues I've been having more and more recently with Pokemon is that it's just being aimed only for kids. And I'm not saying that we need to have simply aimed for adults, but what if families? Like, there's very little that can entice me to want to sit here and keep, giving money to Pokemon. There's no reason I should. Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows that they still care about the fans who still love the stuff from back then. Sure, it's not always geared towards adults in certain regards, but it's at least mature enough sometimes. Well, what 4Kids doesn't try to, cut off. But they will at least sit there and try to, make something that is a little dark, has a little bit of edge to it, something. Pokemon is just becoming this edgeless, like, repeat of just the same damn thing over and over again, to the point to where it's beginning to feel like they just don't care. It's just about money. It's less about trying to get out a good product, and it's simply about just trying to get out the cheapest one. And also, that's the big thing I can say about, soapbox done. So, to give Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolutions its final grade, if it's not painfully obvious, it's a 1. I know it may seem really harsh, because I actually kind of do enjoy the original. If you want to know my score for that, 6-ish or so. It may seem weird because it has so much similarities, but it's because of that. It's like, what was the purpose of rebooting a movie 20 years after, or actually not even rebooting, remaking a movie nearly 20 years later without adding anything positive towards it? Like, you have worse looking visuals, you have a worse story out of everything, and on top of everything, and you actually have also worse voice acting. If that's another thing I have to talk about, or I have to rail on real quick, is the fact that the voice acting is beyond just Brock's thing he constantly does throughout the entire thing. And just, I get that some voice actors are not always able to redo voices. Like, for instance, the gentleman who used to do James, and he had to reteach himself how to do the voice. He's not 100% there, but, like, for instance, I don't know if it's the same voice actor who did Meowth, but dear God, does that voice not sound right? It just never syncs right. And also, they use the current voice actor who does Ash, and I'm sorry, she just sounds like this super little kid, like a 5-year-old, compared to Ash's at least 10 or 12. And at least the original Ash felt like, okay, at least I can believe that. And it's weird that they couldn't even be bothered to get it. Or she might have passed away. If she did, I'm very sorry. I don't know. Just if you're a hardcore Pokemon fan, there's not even anything here to watch. It's so much of a rehash of the original that it kind of wastes your time if you did like the original, or if you didn't like. If you didn't like the original, there's nothing here for you because it's too much beat for beat. There's so little changes. And if you did like the original, you probably liked it for the same reason I did. I liked its dark aesthetic. I did actually kind of sympathize with Mewtwo. Here you can't sympathize with him. And also the dark aesthetic really doesn't work a lot of times because it's just dark, muddy, blurry backgrounds. Instead of here where it feels like somebody painstakingly drew a lot of stuff. Even though I still don't get the staircase in the middle of the whole fucking thing. But yeah, that's Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolutions. It's like they used de-evolution spray on the damn thing. It was the best thing I can say about the fucking movie. But hey, we'll be back, Megan and me, though, when we get to talk about another kids movie, strangely enough. Because we'll be back on Sunday with Onward. But hey, until then, I'll see you all there. So, bye-bye, everybody.